You think she doesn't want intimacy anymore. That's the story you've been telling yourself. And on the surface, it feels true. She seems distant, less responsive, not as engaged as she used to be. So naturally, you try harder. You initiate more. You push a little further. You hope that if you show enough interest, something will shift. But instead, the opposite happens. The more you chase, the more she pulls away. The more you try to create closeness, the more distance you feel. And at some point, it stops feeling confusing and starts feeling frustrating. You begin to wonder if she's lost interest completely. Or worse, if the connection is just gone. Here's what most men don't realize. This pattern isn't random. It's predictable. Because her response isn't about rejecting you, it's about how she experiences desire. And that experience doesn't follow the same rules you've been assuming. In fact, the more you rely on those assumptions, the more you unintentionally push her further away. So the real question isn't, why doesn't she want intimacy? The real question is, what am I missing about how her desire actually works? In this video, we're going to break down the deeper psychology behind it, the hidden patterns, the silent signals, and the 7 truths that completely change how you understand attraction. Because once you see what's really happening beneath the surface, everything starts to make sense. Most men experience desire like a switch. It turns on quickly, sometimes instantly, triggered by what they see, feel, or imagine. It's direct, physical, and easy to access. So naturally, you assume her desire works the same way. If you feel it, she should feel it too. But that assumption is where things start to go wrong. For her, desire doesn't work like a switch. It works like a sequence. It begins in her mind, not her body. And that sequence is influenced by everything that came before the moment you're in right now. The way you spoke to her earlier, the attention you gave or didn't give, how she felt the last time you were together, even the emotional tone of your interactions throughout the day. All of it builds or slowly breaks her sense of connection. This means that when you suddenly try to create physical closeness without activating that mental and emotional buildup, it doesn't land the way you expect. To you, it feels natural. To her, it can feel disconnected. And here's the part most men overlook. Her experiences don't reset to neutral. If those moments with you haven't been emotionally engaging or satisfying, her desire doesn't stay the same. It quietly fades. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually, until it feels like it disappeared. It didn't disappear, it just stopped being activated. So when you ask yourself, why isn't she interested anymore? What you're really asking is, why isn't her mind engaged anymore? Because that's where it starts, and if her mind isn't there, her body won't follow. Here's where many men get it completely backward. You think her desire is based on how attractive you are, how you look, how confident you appear, how strong your presence is. And while those things may spark initial interest, they are not what sustain her desire over time. What truly drives her response is much deeper than that. She responds to how desired she feels by you. It's not just about you being attracted to her, it's about whether she can feel that attraction in a real, consistent, and emotionally engaging way. The way you look at her, the way you notice small details, the way you give her your full attention in a moment, those are the signals that matter. Early on, you did this naturally. You pursued her, you teased her, you made her feel seen, chosen, and special. There was energy, curiosity, and intention behind your actions. And her response? Effortless. She leaned in, engaged, and matched your energy. But over time, something changed. You became comfortable, predictable. You assumed she already knew how you felt, so you stopped showing it the same way. The effort became less intentional, less frequent, less alive, and without realizing it, you removed the very thing that was fueling her desire. Now, she doesn't feel unattractive. She just doesn't feel special anymore. And when a woman stops feeling desired, her emotional response shifts. Her energy pulls back. Her engagement fades. Not because she wants to create distance, but because the feeling that once drew her in is no longer present. Desire doesn't disappear because of time. It disappears when the feeling of being wanted slowly fades away. This is where many men completely misread the situation. You often see intimacy as a way to relax, reset, and feel better. But for her, it can feel very different, especially when her mind is already overloaded. Think about what her day might look like. responsibilities, deadlines, messages she hasn't answered, things she still needs to take care of. Even when the day ends, those thoughts don't just disappear. They stay active in the background, quietly demanding attention. So when you approach her expecting her to suddenly shift into a relaxed, receptive state, you're stepping into a space that isn't empty. It's already full. And here's the disconnect. You're trying to create closeness in a moment when her mind is still processing everything else. To you, it feels like a natural transition. To her, it can feel like another demand on top of everything she's already carrying. Now add one more layer to this. If the only time you become fully attentive, affectionate, or present is when you want intimacy, she starts to notice that pattern. And instead of feeling desired, she may begin to feel like your attention is conditional, like it only appears when you need something. That changes how she interprets your approach, not as connection, but as pressure. And when pressure enters the equation, her response becomes predictable. She pulls back. She becomes less open, less engaged, less responsive, not out of rejection, but out of overwhelm. This is the shift you need to understand. Support creates space. Presence creates comfort. Reducing her mental load creates openness. Because desire doesn't grow when someone feels overwhelmed. It grows when they finally have the space to feel again. This is one of the most misunderstood dynamics, and it quietly shapes everything. A woman cannot fully open up physically if she doesn't feel emotionally safe first. And emotional safety isn't about big gestures or dramatic reassurances. It's built in the small, consistent moments, how you respond to her, how you listen, how present you are when she expresses herself. Because for her, closeness isn't just physical, it's emotional exposure. When she lets her guard down, she's not just sharing a moment with you, she's allowing herself to be seen without filters, without control, without protection, and that level of openness requires trust. But here's what often happens. During the day, you might be distracted, distant, or unavailable without realizing it. Maybe you're focused on your own responsibilities, your own thoughts, your own world. There's no intentional connection, no real emotional engagement. Then later, when it suits the moment, you try to create closeness. The problem is, for her, those moments are connected. She doesn't separate the emotional distance from earlier and the physical closeness you're asking for now. To her, it feels inconsistent, and inconsistency doesn't feel safe, so her response is natural. She pulls back. She becomes less open, less responsive, not because she wants to create distance, but because her system is trying to protect her from opening up in a space that doesn't feel secure. And this is where many men get frustrated. It feels like she's holding back on purpose, but she's not. She's responding to the emotional environment around her, because emotional safety isn't built in one moment. It's built in patterns. And if those patterns don't make her feel understood and valued, she won't fully open up. You don't lose connection in a single moment. You lose it slowly through what you consistently show her. Most men see intimacy as the center of the relationship. It feels like proof that things are working, that the connection is strong, that everything is on track. So when it starts to fade, your instinct is to focus on it directly, to initiate more, try harder, and bring that part back. But that approach often makes things worse, because for her, intimacy isn't the foundation, it's the reflection. It reflects how she feels outside of those moments, how you speak to her, how you treat her in everyday situations, whether she feels appreciated, understood, and emotionally connected to you when there's no expectation attached. This is where the disconnect happens. You try to fix the outcome while she's responding to the underlying experience. So when intimacy decreases, you increase effort in that specific area. But from her perspective, it can feel like pressure on something that's already out of balance. And instead of restoring the connection, it highlights the gap even more. That's how the cycle begins. The less connection she feels, the less open she becomes. The less open she becomes, the more you try to create closeness. And the more you push, the more she withdraws. Not because she doesn't care, but because what you're asking for isn't aligned with what she needs. Here's the reframe. Stop treating intimacy as the solution. Start seeing it as feedback, because when the connection is strong, closeness happens naturally. But when the connection is weak, forcing closeness only exposes what's missing. And once you understand that, you stop chasing the result and start strengthening the foundation that creates it. This is one of the most overlooked dynamics and one of the easiest to misunderstand. There will be moments when she shows up for connection even if she's not fully in the mood, not because she feels obligated, but because she cares about the relationship and wants to maintain that closeness with you. For her, that choice can come from intention rather than immediate feeling. But here's where things often go wrong. You interpret her energy at the surface level. If she's not as expressive or enthusiastic as you expected, you assume something is off. You start questioning her interest, pulling back emotionally, or reacting with frustration. And without realizing it, you dismiss the effort she just made. From her perspective, that moment mattered. She chose to meet you halfway, to create connection, even if her internal state wasn't fully aligned yet. But when that effort is met with doubt or criticism, it sends a clear message. What she gave wasn't enough. So next time, she hesitates, not because she doesn't care, but because she doesn't feel safe offering that effort again. And over time, those small moments disappear. This creates a silent gap. You begin to feel rejected, while she begins to feel unappreciated. Both of you think something has changed, but in reality, it's the response to effort that shifted everything. Here's the adjustment. Start noticing intention, not just intensity, because when effort is acknowledged, it grows. When it's overlooked, it fades. And sometimes, the connection you're looking for is already there. You just didn't recognize it in the form it came. This is where many men lose opportunities without even realizing it. You tend to think of desire as something constant. If it's there, it should be available at any moment. But for her, it doesn't work that way. Her openness to connection is deeply influenced by timing, context, and her internal state. How her day went, her energy levels, her mood, what she's been thinking about. All of these factors shape how she responds in any given moment. So when you decide, tonight is the night, you're operating on your timing, not hers. And when she doesn't respond the way you expected, your instinct might be to push a little more, to try and shift her into that space. But the moment you do that, something subtle changes. It stops feeling natural and starts feeling forced. And when something feels forced, her body and mind move in the opposite direction. She becomes less open, less responsive, not because she's rejecting you, but because she doesn't feel understood in that moment. This is the key shift. Attraction isn't just about initiation, it's about awareness. Sometimes the most effective move isn't to move forward, it's to pause, read the situation, and adjust. To recognize where she is emotionally and meet her there instead of trying to pull her somewhere else. Because when she feels seen in her timing, she relaxes. And that relaxation is what creates openness. You don't build connection by insisting on your moment. You build it by respecting hers. This is the truth that quietly determines everything that comes after. A woman's desire doesn't just depend on the moment, it depends on what that moment leads to. The overall quality of the experience shapes whether her interest grows, stays the same, or slowly fades over time. And here's the reality many men overlook. If the experience feels one-sided, rushed, or emotionally disconnected, her mind begins to associate closeness with effort rather than enjoyment. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually. She may still engage, still show up, still go along with it, but internally, something shifts. Instead of looking forward to those moments, she starts feeling neutral about them, or even quietly avoiding them, because there's nothing pulling her toward it. Now here's where most men get it wrong. You might focus on changing things up, adding variety, trying new approaches, making it more exciting from your perspective, but that's not what she's primarily looking for. She's not chasing novelty. She's looking for consistency in how it makes her feel, comfortable, connected, understood, and genuinely engaged in the moment. When she finds something that creates that feeling, she naturally leans into it, not because she lacks imagination, but because she finally feels something real and meaningful in that space. And if that feeling is disrupted or ignored, she disconnects again. This is the shift you need to understand. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what actually works for her and doing it with awareness. Because if the experience consistently feels positive and fulfilling, her desire builds over time. But if it doesn't, her interest won't disappear loudly. It will fade quietly until it's no longer there at all. Her desire was never just about the physical act. It has always been about the mental and emotional environment you create, the way you engage her mind, the way you make her feel seen, valued, and safe, the space you give her to breathe, relax, and enjoy the moment. When any of these elements are missing, desire doesn't vanish instantly. It slowly diminishes. You thought you were chasing intimacy, but what you were really doing was overlooking the system that produces it. If her mind isn't engaged, her body won't follow. If she doesn't feel desired, she won't respond. If she's overwhelmed, she won't open. If she doesn't feel emotionally safe, she won't surrender fully. If the connection is weak, intimacy won't fix it. If she offers herself and you don't acknowledge it, she will stop offering. If the timing is wrong, nothing else matters. And if the experience isn't fulfilling, she quietly detaches. This is why so many men feel frustrated. They are trying to fix the surface while the underlying dynamics are being ignored. They focus on the act, when the real challenge is the environment, the attention, the intention, and the emotional connection leading up to it. The shift you need is simple, but profound. Stop asking, how do I get more intimacy? Start asking, what kind of man am I creating in her mind when she thinks about me? Because the answer to that question determines everything. When you focus on the full picture, her mind, her emotions, her timing, and the quality of the experience, you stop chasing desire. Instead, you become the reason she wants to give it. And when you truly understand this pattern, you see everything differently. What felt confusing, frustrating, or unpredictable suddenly makes sense. You stop guessing, you start responding, and the connection you've been searching for begins to naturally return.